Thanks everyone for joining us for MicroCamp. And thank you, Om Malik. We are so excited to have you as a special guest to kick things off. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting.
So I'll give just a real quick, it's hard to summarize, 20, 25 years in 5 seconds, but just real quick for people that aren't familiar, you are a journalist, you covered tech really early, kind of leading up to the dot-com era. You were founder at GigaOM, you were a partner at True Ventures, and you're a blogger. You post photos. I love seeing your photos, great black and white photography, and you write about social media, and you've had a way of capturing the moment that we're in, I think, as social networks evolve, as people are more interested in a kind of a renewed focus on blogs and more independent platforms. So I'd love to talk to you about that. But first, what did I miss in that quick whirlwind description of your of the last couple of decades?
I think you got it right. I think most of my life is dedicated to journalism. I thought blogging was an extension of that idea. That's why I was a very, very early adopter, like 2000 timeframe, and a big disciple of Dave Weiner. And life is taking me in many directions. I live on the edge. There's nothing wrong with like looking at the possibilities of technology and imagining that.
Yeah. And I mean, I really personally, I loved those kind of early days, following what Dave Weiner was up to and kind of switching. I think you used like movable type and Blogger and some of those early systems. And I use some of those too. And I guess, is there anything, I'm just curious of those early days of blogging, is there anything that stands out as you were just trying things out and switching different blogging platforms and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I was hand coding HTML pages in the, like 90s, early 90s, using whatever tool for like text editors or something like that. But literally writing articles based on, and then writing HTML as well and publishing them on like some ISP server. Like that's what I guess that was called blogging then. I went on to use, what is that? I forget. There's a Fusion.
Cold Fusion, yeah.
They had a home suite product. I used that. I used Dreamweaver. I used Front Page and a whole bunch of other apps to create web pages. And then essentially the idea of publishing on the web was what was to me the most important thing. And that's why I find it's so strange that people get caught up in the trap of the label. Like, hey, this is blogging, this is tweeting, and this is Substack, this is Medium. And it's like, how did we go from publishing information to actually becoming focused on like the tools which publish this information? I think that has been the most confounding part of everything. And a lot of that, I actually still scratch my head and it's like, how did we become so, like, I have a Substack. No, instead of saying, I write, you write, like how you write, like, do you actually say what notebook you're using or what color, what pen brand you're using when you write in your notebook? And it just is like the insanity of it makes no sense to me. So the progression for me was like as tools became easier, I just adopted the easiest way to publish and the easiest way for people to find me. I mean, that's been the theme, right? Like you want as a writer people to read you. That's it. Like, otherwise, even if only one person reads you, like that's the act of creating it's complete. It's like you created in a void, so it still is an incomplete act. At least for me. For other people, it's very different. For me as a journalist, for me as a writer, the act of creation is going out, touching somebody with what I've written, and Then the process is complete, start again, do it again. And to me, that was it. And I think the blogging was just the simplest, easiest way of doing it. And, Blogger is a great tool. If you feed your stuff into a server and it worked, and then movable type came and that made things easy. But then, I ended up being in the open source camp and I've always stayed in that camp.
Yeah, it's so
And,
interesting.
and the reason is like, it's not like a religious thing. It's more like I do not want to be beholden to some silo. That's how, like, it's not like, again, like, right now it's become a religious thing. And it's like, for me, it just is like, there's a reason why the internet exists. It's supposed to be open. It's supposed to be a network of networks. We cannot be confined to just one thing. And I guess I'm old, like as you said in your intro, 35 years plus on, writing about technology, 27 plus years in the internet itself. And I think it has made you appreciate the underlying technology, what the internet is all about. So the ethos are still, like alive and kicking inside me. I mean,
Yeah,
I've dabbled with like I should do a medium and I should do a Substack, and something inside me, holds me back.
yeah. I think it's interesting to frame it that way of like um, a tweet or a Substack or like I feel like there's a trend with companies. They want to sort of own the noun or the verb that's part of. And actually, when we started Micro.blog, a lot of people asked like, what should we call posts? Should we give them some special gimmicky name? And I always push back at them. No, they're just posts. We don't need tweet. We don't need anything fancy. And I wonder, I mean, you were so early on Twitter. You were like literally one of the very first people.
The first tweet, like
Yeah,
the first tweet
first
outside of
outside.
Twitter people.
Yeah. And so, obviously Twitter has gone through a lot of leadership changes and different things, but at its core, microblogging, these short posts, it was about what you just said is like, what's the easiest way we can just kind of get our thoughts out there. And I guess I wonder how you feel seeing the different changes that have gone with Twitter, and does that influence how you write on your own blog at all, or are those kind of separate worlds?
I mean, clearly, both Facebook and Twitter have had an impact on like how people, publish, the kind of people publish, and how often they publish. All those things have changed. And in a way, like I think I wrote a blog post maybe like almost a decade ago. I think I can send you a link for that. That what used to be blogging has been parsed into many parts, right? Like blogging used to be about friends, and like we had like the blog roll, and that became like Twitter in a sense, and the source for information, and then the post became like Facebook, and the actual photography became Instagram, and it's like a lot of social behavior came from blogging. And I think as all these new platforms have come up, they are being more current, right? They're more equipped for the time we are living in, right? So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, they are the the right ways to publish in the age of the mobile, right? And TikTok was right way to publish in the age of the front facing camera, right? TikTok and Snap. I think we look at the act of publishing in complete isolation from the network itself, the hardware which is available, and how we, the people, are actually using real world technology. And so blogging is everywhere now. It just isn't like in a blog silo. So how has it influenced me, right? Like the world has become like so fast, so off the cuff, so casual. So when you're a blogger, you actually have to take a step back and just say, I can't be doing the things I was doing earlier. I actually have to take a more thoughtful approach. I cannot compete with the speed of the mobile platforms or these short form platforms. So what I publish has to be more considered. All these things become inputs as much as they become outputs for distribution. And so it kind of, so it's like the great thing about blogging is it's like information remix. That's the idea of blogging is like taking information and remixing it. And like so blogging itself hasn't changed. How we do it, like how we cook a dish is different on a gas stove versus on a wooden stove versus on a charcoal grill. But we're still cooking. Right? So that's exactly how I think about blogging. It's just like you think differently about those.
Do you think there's like right now, it feels like there's a lot more awareness about like where things are going? And I guess, some people, put their photos on Instagram and this other platform and whatever the new thing is, and their blogs. But I know like I pulled up one of your old posts where you did talk about the kind of trap you can get if you only post to the other platforms. And you said, this is what you were talking about, something in the news, and you said, this is why you need your own little place on the internet. Otherwise, you're always tilling someone else's land. You're always helping their ad platform or whatever their business model is, and you're not controlling yourself. And that is a big kind of philosophy with that, I have, that the indie web has. And I guess I wonder, like, for photography, for example, do you think people are thinking more about that now? It feels to me like they are, but I don't know.
No.
People aren't. No.
I think somewhere down the line, we stop thinking about the idea of photography as a mean of creative satisfaction. And the act of creation is what made photography special. Instead, we all became whores to attention. Right? Instagram turned us into people seeking attention. We forgot all about the creation. And so everything became about the likes and the retweets and the reshares and the comments and the followers instead of what happened to the joy of creating the photo. Like it doesn't even matter what it looks like. The joy today, I was walking around Central Park and I saw one image, literally just like walking, and it caught my eye. I took out my phone, took a photograph. I have a big camera in my bag, and at that point, I just saw this image and I had to make it. I don't think it's like it's not like an fine art photograph. It's not going to be like it won't win any awards. But for me, that one moment of like I saw something and I captured it, and the joy it brought me. That's what photography is all about. And I think a lot of we have imposed metrics upon the act of creation. I think that is why I don't think photography is gonna ever be able to move away from the likes of like Instagram or something like it. Because now we are all addicted to the metrics on top of photography or on video or on creative product.
And that's definitely something I hear from people with starting a new blog. They often miss some of that engagement. And the best bloggers, I think, they post for themselves first, right? They post because just the act of writing something helps clarify their thoughts, or they feel good about sharing it. But if 2 people see it or 100 people, is a secondary thing, and that is it's definitely not a secondary thing on most social networks. In fact, you have teenagers, especially. I notice sometimes they'll post a photo, and if it doesn't get enough likes right away, they'll take it down, like something's wrong with it or something. And that I don't love that, I guess. And I've also, all the new social networks that are coming up, Mastodon, Blue Sky, some of the social networks, they kind of copy the way Twitter did things, in which case I feel like you're going to have the same sort of, the same, people will use it the same way if it rewards the same like counts and follower counts and that sort of engagement. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I I have a lot of thought. I wrote a piece recently about, in my most recent newsletter, I wrote a piece pointing out that Twitter now is the Fox News of social,
Hmm.
and Blue Sky's probably going to become MSNBC because, like, all those people who are going to be uh, Twitter are going to go there. And and the reality is that, I mean, I'm just making an analogy, not that I'm calling it the Fox News of social, but yeah, they're getting there, right? Like, and I think you know we like the Twitter, the idea of what Twitter is and like how it publishes and where it stands in the ecosystem. In a way, we forget that we Web 2.0 people are now essentially entering the internet boomer phase, right? Like in a way we are like old. Like I'm definitely old, I know. But people who were in their mid 20s or they're in their early 20s in 2002, 2003, they're older now. They're 20 years older. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is a middle-aged guy. I'm sorry, right? Like he's a 40-year-old. I
Yep.
mean, he's not cool. Cool people are somewhere else. Cool people are younger. They're using different platforms. Any text-based publishing platform like Twitter, like Blue Sky, like Mastodon, they are essentially reinventing the wheel. Maybe a better wheel for some community or some kind of people with different persuasion. I think if like Fediverse needs to kind of like really go to the next level, it needs to start thinking about how is the next generation going to use the the social, right?
Hmm.
How are they going to adopt? Like like none of the old people actually got the idea that the front facing camera was the most important camera. That's why like you sometimes you look at it like, dear Apple, you're spending billions of dollars building the back facing camera. Great. If only you spend more money on the front facing camera, it would be like more effective. Like the Chinese do it. Like they spend a lot of money in making their front facing cameras more effective so that it can be used for beautification or whatever their reasons might be. But a whole generation has grown up with looking into the mirror called the phone and talking to it. I mean, that's their social interaction, right? And yet we are like, let's hype and let's dunk on people and let's have a funny comment and share a link. And it's like great, but you know, again, it's like eventually all these people are going to go the way of the CBS. Remember CBS network in the past, like all ads they got were like boner pills and heart patients and old people's medication and how they would in the ads they would get. I think I kind of feel that we have to look into the younger generation and how they are thinking about using the web and the internet.
That's really interesting. And I do think sometimes when like the open source world, for example, will build something, they will say, okay, we're going to do Instagram, but more open, federated, whatever. And which is fine, but it also it tends to just create something that already existed in a different way versus trying to figure out how, like you said, the next generation is what kind of tools they need. And so it almost feels like we're always catching up because so much innovation feels like it's happening at the big companies.
Like, this is my old timer status. Okay, I'm gonna just pass into that. So in the old days, we had like Microsoft was so big with their OS and with their Office suite, right? And like Sun Microsystems bought Open Office, and they just try to compete with them feature for feature, open, lower price. Other companies did the same thing. And yet you will come along, just say, yeah, this is on the browser. You don't need to install a software. You don't even need an OS. Just use the search. All the information is going to come this way. You don't win against like a set standard of using something by offering the same product, right? And then we've had, you know, Google. for search became like basically preeminent. Bing has failed and Yahoo didn't go anywhere, and like search is still correlated with Google. So how do you go up against Google? You come up with something like ChatGPT, right? Like you kind of say, oh, that's the way to kind of shift how people use this thing using something very different. And like it's a new way of finding information, right? New way of using computers went from Microsoft to the Google in the browser, and then we went from new way of looking for information. It's going to OpenAI, ChatGPT kind of a thing, right? So you suddenly start to change how people think about certain things. So, like, that's why we look at like Twitter's clones are like, Mastodon. I mean, not saying clones, like that's the wrong word. I apologize for that. They are inspired by similar behavior, right? Like as Twitter,
Mhm.
whether it's Blue Sky, whether Mastodon, there's a couple of others, right? But they're doing exactly the same thing. Like they're doing exactly the same thing. You don't win doing the same thing against somebody who already had 300 million active users, right? Like you may get to like 20 million, 30 million active users, but then what? Like, it's like you're not winning against them. So if you have to win, you have to think different. Think like how would, you know, like a whole new generation of people going to use your product? And the Fediverse needs to kind of really sit down and figure out how would that happen. And it's not going to happen by just trying to reinvent the wheel.
Mm. Yeah, I think that the Fediverse certainly, I mean, has grown so much just in the last handful of months. But it is, I mean, when I think of like 10 million people on the Fediverse, that feels like a lot of people to me, but really compared to the billions on or hundreds of millions on Twitter,
Yeah.
it's still early days. And actually, I was just reading, there was another rumor this morning, I think, about Meta's possible tweet-like service based on Instagram, kind of off of your Instagram profile, and whether that would be compatible with Mastodon. And it's fascinating to think if Tumblr or Instagram or someone embraced the Fediverse, they would immediately become the dominant, player. They would just have many, many more millions of people. And what would that do to the existing community?
I think that's a key, very good point you bring up. So as far as Facebook and like doing like a Twitter clone, and they've tried it before, didn't work. Then again, even people who are like, the young people don't use Facebook. It's becoming less and less relevant. I think the only product they have where the younger demographic is relevant is Instagram. And, they're going to kill the golden goose. It's only a matter of time because as a company, they don't have not many ideas. They just try and copy somebody here. They try to do metaverse, won't really succeed with it because they don't know how to invent anything new, right? So they're basically keep copying other people. Like they're looking at, oh, we can roll out a Twitter-like interface and see what happens. At this point, they don't know what to do next. So they're waiting for somebody else to create something they can copy. As simple as that. They copied TikTok, they copied Snap. Like, oh, let's copy Twitter again, like for the second, third, fourth time, and see maybe it works this time, and it won't. Again, like, their audience is also aging up,
Hmm.
right? Like, I think we like it's a very difficult word to use for like as somebody who's in his late 50s now. I mean, I've aged out of like all these new products. Like I don't know if you remember, there was an app called Be Real. It came,
Oh
it
yeah.
like shot up, and where did it go? Right? Because it was also like it was a shit. It didn't really change the game very much. And I think with younger people, if you need to get on to like the next thing, like that's not Facebook and that's not Twitter. I mean, Elon Musk is a 50 plus year old guy. He doesn't have bright new ideas on how young people do social.
Um, we have a few questions I want to get to from from MicroCamp attendees. And also, I want to point out, I hate to say this, but I think I messed up the Zoom invite. So we may need to stop it in 5 minutes or reset it. So I apologize.
Okay.
That's my fault. But let me read a couple questions. So one of them is, what do you think about having different blogger personas? Have you ever? I feel like right now, as far as I know, you have one blog where you put everything. But like, have you ever thought about that before?
Yeah, I would love to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
I really wish I had multiple blog personas because I write about cricket, I write about objects and design, and I write about technology. They're all different. I wish I didn't do one blog to fit everything.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Yeah. I know some people, when they have multiple blogs, then they have the problem of they're not sure which one to post to sometimes. But I guess if you have clear personas, it's easier. Another question.
I would love to do that again.
Yeah. Someone, speaking of Dave Weiner, says Dave's been pushing the idea of text casting for a while. What is your opinion of what he's talking about? Do you think this stands a chance of establishing itself as a principle?
I think you have to be an idiot to ignore Dave on anything. Dave is, in my mind, and in my heart, and in my life, is being the person who makes me think different. I don't necessarily agree with him on everything, but every single word he says makes me pause and think different. I think if he's saying text casting, we have to pay full attention to it.
Yeah,
even podcasting was not a thing.
Right.
Like now we've completely don't even talk about him in podcast. We don't even talk about him being playing the major role in what is blogging right now. There is no Facebook without Dave Weiner. There is no Spotify podcast without Dave. And I think if he's saying text casting is a thing, it is a thing.
I do like the kind of, coining the term podcast, I think it has been kind of just incredible if you think back. And like the idea that like text casting, as I understand it, it's kind of just rolling what we've already got and microblogs and feeds and things together, but giving it a name, I think, is really fascinating. And because sometimes people need a name to kind of latch onto.
Absolutely.
So let's see what else we got.
Back in 1999, 2000, there was a thing called push technology.
Mm-hmm.
Text casting in a way reminds me of that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Company called Marimba. There was a company called Marimba.
Yeah. Oh, that's going far back in my. It's all a blur. It's all a blur to me. Okay, so I can't get to all of these, but here's another one. In a lot of ways, it feels like mass blogging turns increasingly toward communication tools. How do you think about the asynchronous, mostly one-way publish and read world versus two-way communication world?
So I did one-way publish for a little while, for about 3 years, 4 years. I was, I just didn't want to engage with people. I just wanted to write and publish. What a mistake. The greatest part of GigaOM and the greatest joy of GigaOM was the back and forth with people in the comment section. And community and the synchronous aspect of like communicating with people who are reading you and engaging with you is the real joy of blogging. It was a mistake on my part, and I have rectified it. Most of my articles are now have comments except for anything political I say, which I rarely do.
Yeah. All right. So a couple more questions. So here's one. With some teenagers opting for dumb phones and looking for more disconnect, is a platform like micro.blog the way of the future? Out of the way, just lets you blog without the need to compete, i.e. get likes or retweets and achieve influencer status. So what do you think about platforms that try to get people to think more, just more about blogging for the sake of it and getting some nice reaction, but maybe not going viral and not taking over the world as an influencer.
Don't know about that. Like I'm not a youngster, so I don't really know how that works. But I also see many, many, many young people, like everything they do, they're taking a photograph. And, like I just was walking over to the office to do this meeting, and there's like everybody and their mother were just like taking photographs and Instagramming and live streaming or whatever they were. And it's like, yeah, people do that now. That's like the way of the world. I don't know, but like I don't think, it's like either or situation. Like there is a lot of different ways to exist on the internet now. It's like, there is 6 billion internet connections. So obviously different behaviors exist. But I think influencer life is a legitimate lifestyle now. It's a profession. Being a creative is a profession. People do that. So I don't know. But then there is some people who just want to be, these are the same people who also want to go hiking and be disconnected from the universe. Like, different. I mean, again, like I said, I'm no expert on how young people think. But I hope, they're for the sake of Microdog blog that they all come to you.
Well, and I think that's one interesting thing in that there's a tendency, I think we feel like there should be one platform that actually fits everyone. And I kind of am increasingly thinking that that's not going to be the case again in the way it was with Facebook. We'll have lots of smaller communities. So I would love young people to join Microdot.blog, and we have some young people, but realistically, maybe it is never going to capture the 15-year-old,
So let's say you get to like 10 million people using Microdot. I don't know how many people use it. Let's say you get to 10 million people. What's wrong with that?
I honestly,
like literally, what's wrong with that? Like, why does it have to be 100 million or a billion? Like, why is the big is not better? Especially as far as your product is concerned, big doesn't necessarily make it any better, right? Like maybe you get a little richer, but like, does the product get better? Does the community benefit from it? Like, I think it's time to start thinking about tech like you would think of non-tech products also, right? Like, how is it? Like, you can, if Porsche sold 5 million Porsches a year, will it really be a Porsche at that time? It will just be a Volkswagen, right?
Yeah, and there's problems too. Having too. I mean, if I can't even imagine having over 1 million, to be honest. And I think you have moderation problems. You have community. I mean, it's just It is really. I personally don't think I am cut out to manage something with that many people, because it's just a whole nother level. But if we had lots of smaller networks that appealed to certain people, that might be pretty good.
I share my photos on Glass.
Yeah.
And like, I have no idea how many people follow me and not follow me. I don't know. There's like 25 people who engage with me on that platform. That's pretty good to me. Like, I appreciate those 25 people talking to me, telling me about my photographs, what they like. Sometimes when they don't like something, they politely let me know that they don't like it. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. I just noticed. Sorry, go ahead.
That's just civil interaction.
Yeah. Right. And that's like, it doesn't take much to feel like something. It only really takes one person usually to reply and say, "Oh, I love that photo," for it to feel, great. Like you got something from that. And not sometimes you won't even get, one reply, but it doesn't take hundreds of people. I was curious about Glass because I just noticed today actually that you were on Glass, because I haven't been using it recently, but it's been around for a little while. But it's kind of like, I guess, do you see it a place for? Because as far as I know, it's not open. They're not trying to federate with Mastodon. They don't have an API. And part of me is a little frustrated with that, because I would love to automatically allow people to post to it. But I guess the way you use it, yeah.
Yeah, you can like basically I share an HTML link.
Mhm.
Like I don't know if that's like HTML is a pretty open API in my opinion. Like, so if somebody wants to use it, like I can embed it on like
Oh, I see. Yeah. Right. So you
like
can
I can drop a link on micro.blog and it
Mhm.
just goes up.
Right. Yes. You can, yeah, you can, if you post to Glass, then you can include it somewhere else, but you can't post to like micro.blog and then have it automatically send to Glass, which is, so.
I'm happy to connect you with the founder.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what they're thinking or how they're thinking. I pay for it. I like it. It's a civilized little place. It's like living in a very, very small town. And I'm very happy with it.
That's good. Oh, like, that's great to hear. Yeah. I pay for it too. I want to support what they're doing. I'm just kind of curious where it's going, or maybe it doesn't need to go anywhere. Maybe it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how they're thinking about their long-term plans, but for me right now it works. It adds value to my daily use.
So another question. Do you feel like Web 3.0 has or will reach a point of saturation, and what might be next? So
I don't know what Web 3.0 means.
Yeah, it's
and just like I didn't know what Web 2.0 means, or don't know what Web 1.0. There is the web. It keeps evolving. That's technology. Right? I mean, will we have more decentralized apps where identity and trust and decentralized way of like linking things together, aka the original idea of the internet, is relevant? Yes. Like you want to assign crypto values to it. I'm not sure I have any opinion on that other than a little sneer.
Yeah, it's I feel like the marketing of calling the kind of crypto blockchain stuff Web 3.0 is quite interesting, because it's not totally in the same ballpark as what we're used to of the web, but interesting. Do you think at some point that we lost the distinction between communication platforms and broadcast platforms? I think that's at the core of a lot of these issues around chasing interactions and likes and comments.
Oh yeah. That's a very good question. I think I've always viewed internet as a communications platform. And so like my brain only works like when I worked in publishing, and like I always thought it was like a broadcast platform, right? It was more like, you're publishing information out. But one of the things which attracted me to the internet was the two-way nature of it. So I think, you know what? I am flummoxed by that question.
Yeah.
I'll have to think about it. And whoever asked that question, they can drop me an email, and I'm happy to answer it when I've actually thought through my answer.
Yeah, and that's I mean, kind of what I was saying earlier. I think sometimes I personally find, I mean, just talking is great, but it's hard sometimes to have a chance to think it through. Whereas like if you're writing a blog post answer to it, you have a chance to, what does this actually mean? And let me think through the answer, which is something I really like about blogging. So one more, do you think, this is about Glass again, do you think Glass and Micro.blog are similar in that they cater less to the analytics obsessed world and more to the idea of just trying to share your words and photos with other people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I thought, like, one of the things on my personal blog, I have no analytics, right? Except for whatever the platform has. And like, it's like I have de-emphasized even looking at those on a daily basis. I removed it from the dashboard. I removed all analytics from the dashboard. And the reason for that is that I'm just creating, right?
Yeah.
And once in a while, somebody will send me an email or will leave a comment. It's like, oh, I'm not yelling in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's okay. And I think that's why I like using Glass. Like I said, 25 people. I mean, I don't know if I don't even publish on my blog like I used to, and then I just stopped sometime. I don't know why my link broke or something, and I didn't even. But again, the whole thing is right now I'm just creating for myself, and it's just is the act of creation is more important than anything else. This
Yeah.
is how I create now. This is on creating. This is my blog. This is my blog platform. And then eventually I feel, oh, okay, it's ready to be shared with somebody else, and then I put it on my website.
And right now, you're using WordPress right now. We talked a little bit about older ones. We need to wrap up here, but I do want to kind of go back to WordPress a little because you've known Matt Molig for long time, and you've seen the growth of WordPress and blogging and all the things Automatic is doing. One thing stood out to me, I guess it was a year or two ago, but Matt was talking about he'd love for WordPress to be the kind of operating system of the web. It's like it's everywhere. It's like they have 40%, but they'd be fine with even more of the web using it. And I wonder, as me, I'm like a smaller, Micro.blog is a smaller kind of blog hosting, much smaller compared to WordPress. But like for small or big platforms, like what do you think we can? Like, what would it take to get more people blogging, more people thinking about a blog, and like what blog hosting companies? What more can blog hosting companies do?
More people blog right now than you realize.
Yeah,
everybody on Facebook is a blogger.
Okay,
they just don't blog on WordPress, or they don't blog on your platform, or they don't blog in a way we used to think about blog. But people blog all the time in various social platforms. That's blogging. It's a very different way of doing blogging than we used to do it. But back in the day, back in the day, we used to use bullocks and oxen for like tilling the land, and horses and buggies to ride to places. So things change. I think whether like if I was you or if I was any other platform, I would focus on doing what makes you happy and what makes your customers happy. And your customers don't necessarily need to be the paying customer. People who give you attention, are you making them happy? As simple as that. And I think those are like people who are writing on Reddit every day, are they not blogging? Like anyone who spends like a 45 minutes writing a post on what shimmer inks to buy on a fountain pen subreddit, is that not blogging? I think that's blogging. It just is not in a container we used to call blogging.
right.
I mean, the idea of blog is very different. I think the blogging has won. The grand vision of people like Dave Weiner has won. Like podcasting is now everywhere, blogging is everywhere, and text casting will be everywhere. Just wait and see.
Yeah, like when you talked about the old days of like basically hand writing a website, where it's like whether it's HTML or whether it's a tool that makes it a little easier. The leap from that to a blog platform was kind of the big leap, and it's not that different from posting to WordPress as posting to Reddit or one of these other. But
what is stories on Instagram today? That's live journal. Like essentially, that's live journal, whether people want to admit it or not, right? That was in the text era when we used to have slow networks. Now we live in a 5D world with a front-facing camera and a young kid who is not afraid to put like a video out there. But they don't share it with everyone. They share it with their few friends, just like live journal does. Like it's essentially the same ideas, like repurposed in a and bottle.
So one of the things that I think about a lot is one difference between like Facebook, Reddit, and like WordPress or Micro.blog or blogging is identity, and like where are you putting your stuff? And so like you have om.co, perfect short domain name, all your stuff's right there. But if you're posting on Facebook, you're who knows what the URL is. It's something. Now, as we kind of talked about, like some people don't really think or care about that, but I wonder, is there anything more we can do to like help educate people that like maybe you should have something like Om.co. Maybe you should have something that's separate off of one of these big platforms.
I don't know. Like,
No.
people are different, right? Like, generationally, we are different, right? Like, what you see is what you get with me. Like, I'm not, like, you were asking me about the persona. I couldn't do the persona on Twitter versus, like, I could not be, like, I couldn't even fake it. Like, I couldn't be a good marketer on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I am who I am. And
Hmm.
I grew up in that generation. And that's my internet identity. And that's like, I don't want to be somebody else. Life is already too complicated. And I think going forward, like, we actually have to question the idea of how long do we actually have the browser-based web, or are we transitioning to a network-based network internet experience where we've decided that browser is the primary interface for everything. The question is why, and has its time come? If not now, then maybe 5 years from now. How will we interface? Like, we think of technology as a constant. We've decided that, like, for 25 years that browser is a constant. No one's no one really thought that the browsers can be like atomized and fractionalized into apps. That's what really happened, right? And like, what happens after the app? Like, where do we go from here? Like, I mean, ChatGPT is showing us, it's giving us a sign of where the future is. And it's not in a browser. Today it may be in a browser, but it may not be in a browser. And I think we are all so caught up in, like, what we have experienced that we are not thinking about what we have not experienced, what we could see happen. A generation which is growing up with a front facing camera and talking to a piece of glass. Imagine their future. Imagine a generation which is growing up talking to the computer and doing swipes and gestures. Why would the browser be their primary interface? Right? We haven't thought about it because we are not that generation. And like I said, the reason metaverse has failed is because, not because, like, that is not the right idea. It's a company run by a 40-something middle-aged guy. He doesn't know what is cool, what is the future. He has the money to think he can find out. It's like, Apple is going to try and invent the future of what everything looks like. But, you know, who knows? And I think that's how we have to challenge it, right? Like, where is it all going to be? Like, looking from here to kind of just say, oh, we're gonna do more microblogging in the future. It's like, no, imagine what 5 years from now and there is no browser. What does microblog look like? What is blogging? Think of blogging in that day and age. I have no idea. If I did, like, I'm still here and I'm still looking, and I'm probably still more excited about finding that, right? Do I like the idea of TikTok, a Chinese owned company, having access to all these, personal details? Probably not, but they also must feel the same thing about. I mean, that's why they don't want Facebook to have access to the Chinese citizens, right? Like, but the idea of what Snap and TikTok are is very interesting to me. Front-facing camera, piece of glass, whole generation talking to it. I mean, the implications of that are going to be long, over a long period of time.
Well, we'll have to leave it at that and just think about, the future. I'm excited about the present and the future too. Once we can get through this year, which I think is going to have a little bit of a roller coaster also for
it's all up and down, man.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot, like, we are just atoms floating around, and things are going to happen as they happen.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
I really
you for
love
having
talking
me.
to you. And yeah, good luck and thanks again. And thanks on behalf of everybody who's able to watch. And we'll check the video out later. Have a good one.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.